Now, I'm not going to give my exact date of birth because that wouldn't be very diligent of me, but I can say that I was born at some point in the early 90s. No surprises, I'm also going to favour carburetors in this video, despite the problems that they've gave me and I've experienced, or should I say experiencing, because I haven't fixed the problems that I'm experiencing, as you'll see later on in the video, where I've thrown the parts gun at that area and the problem that I'm getting. It doesn't fix it, but at least I do know now what the problem won't be. More on that later though. I'm back to a time when carbs were a thing and they were frequent in pretty much all vehicles. Mid to late 70s, high-end cars started moving away from mechanical fuel injection, which is what a carburetor is, and towards electronic fuel injection. A good example of that is a Ferrari Dino. So the early models on a Ferrari Dino had carburetors and the later models didn't. They were EFI, so electronic fuel injection. And I'm not a mechanic or an engineer, so I'm not a specialist in this. I wish I could tell you more about it, but I have a rough idea, and that's about as far as it goes in that sense. Probably wondering what compelled me to do this video, given that I've got absolutely zero knowledge of it. Well, there's an easy answer to that question, and that is partly because I've never driven a carbureted car. And if when I was born was the early 90s, the last vehicle known to have had a carburetor coming off the production line is supposedly an Isuzu pickup truck in America, which was around about 1994. And if they're coming off the production line not having a carburetor, then they're obviously going to be dying out. And what comes next? Well, all the cars that have got carburetors exist only in the second-hand market. Fast forward another 20 years to when I start to learn to drive, and no cars have carburetors. It was not even a thing anymore. Everything was fuel injection, and the various different ways that the fuel injection is done, whether that's port or direct injection. I'm not going to go into that today, nor could I that well. However, I will go into my story with carburetor, which first came about for me when I inherited this car. Now, I'm not going to go into the car, it's in another video which I'll link at the end, but the experience of driving a car that was so direct, so driver focused, that was so pure, that I absolutely loved it. You literally, when you press the pedal, it's obviously mechanical, so you press the pedal and it pulls the lever, the butterfly valves open, and more air and fuel is dumped into the engine and you go faster. So it's instantaneous, which is an amazing feeling. And if you think about things that have been happening lately, say for example Matt Armstrong with his Lamborghini Revoluto, he hated that car. And why? Well, it got loads of technology on it. Too much technology. Where's he gone now? Back to a naturally aspirated V12 Lamborghini, which is where I would make my main point is, if you have a car purely for driving pleasure, obviously fuel injection is more efficient, faster, etc. But if you've got a car just for driving pleasure, why would you not go to the most pure way, where you're the most connected with the things that are happening? Now, it doesn't come without its problems, because when I've got a bit stuck on my car, and it's around about the carbs, basically what was happening was when the car was not under load, so if it's in gear it's fine, when I put my foot on the clutch to change gear, the revs go up, which, long story short, indicates an air leak somewhere on the system, whether that be at the manifold, at the mounting bracket for the carbs to the manifold, or somewhere in the carbs, because there is small mini gaskets within the carbs that it could also be. And it could be the carb setup itself, which I'm not skilled enough to do properly, and most people aren't. It's a very specialist thing. Having these problems and trying to get someone to fix it was not easy. In short, a garage that I had spoke to changed their mind, wouldn't help out with it, because it does need to go on a dyno to be set up anyway. Again, don't want to go too much into it because it's in the last video, but it does need to go to a garage to have certain weights and things tested before it goes to its IVA to be road legal. And so I ended up deciding I'm obviously going to have to do it myself, or at least try and get it roadworthy, because if it's running fine and it can go and take its IVA, I can drive it to a specialist that's far away. But unfortunately, it just wasn't playing ball and it was not drivable. So I am going to have to do some of that myself, or I've started to do so. After making the decision that I'm going to get this car roadworthy-ish, and before it's properly set up, then I would need to fix this air leak myself. So I started with the intake manifold gasket. The gasket where the intake manifold mounts to the engine block itself, which was a cheap part. I think it was like £3 from Burton. So I bought that, and also when I did what I normally do, which is put stuff out on the forums on Facebook to gather information, which are an amazing source, so thanks for anyone that knows what they're on about that answers me. I posted a picture of something that I wasn't sure about, and there was this response that basically said that where the carbs mount to the intake manifold, the screws were over tightened, and there's supposed to be a level of flex in the carbs, and if they're over tightened it would cause an air leak. It means they're incorrectly set up. Another area that I thought I would change, at the time it would got a type of washer on it. I'm not sure what that washer is off the top of my head, but I changed them out for something that had replaced that washer and probably makes it easier to set up, which is just a rubber grommet with a little metal cap over the top. So I'll be swapping those out all the way around and refitting the whole thing. So I know definitively then those two things are not the problem, and they were a bit of a pain in the to do. Access isn't that great and they're a little bit fiddly. I then started it, and as you can see it starts up now and runs first time, which you never used to. It's still having a bit of an air leak, and when I check the airflow using an airflow meter going through the trumpets, which are these circular things on the end of the carb that help vortex the air into the carb, I think the airflow is way too high. It's like off the chart, not readable. So something's still not right, and it needs to go to a proper specialist, not me, who's just doing things off YouTube, admittedly. And that is a bit of a dilemma because there's not a lot of these specialists about anymore. There isn't a massive volume of these cars about, so naturally there's not that many people doing it anymore. The garage that I thought was going to help me couldn't, and decided not to for whatever reason, and I didn't want to be driving too far, but luckily I happened to be out on a dog walk, walking the route that I'm going now, and came across this. An actual carb specialist with no presence on Google. However, clearly they're a carb specialist. They've got Weber, which is a carb manufacturer, plastered all over the side of one of their barns, so that's a good sign. I've been in and spoke with this person who's got years of experience, and classically, as you would imagine, is quite old now. Hope he doesn't see this video. And he's going to have a look over them for me, service them. He clearly knows what he's on about. He thought I'd come from miles away, but I actually just live around the corner, so that's an absolute win. It's drivable even in the car's current state. With an air leak, I'll be able to get it there. So if you want to see if this guy can fix my air leak problem and then see this car go on to try and become road legal, then make sure you hit subscribe. Tell the algorithm that you want to see more of this type of stuff, or just see the next video.